So, about the noise section, let me first introduce with the fact that some feedback we received from previous qualification exam is that the noise section is not easy. And we have reviewed grades, and we found that probably because noise is not commonly taught in the university now. But in fact, a lot of environmental practitioners, when they start working, they need to work with noise impact assessment. And so that's a gap we found. And a lot of people, in fact, learn about the noise assessment on the job. So when we compile the study guide, we found that the study guide, the noise chapter, will be very useful reference material for the environmental practitioner in Hong Kong, because we have included a lot of local practices and examples in the noise chapter. And also the noise chapter is in fact compiled by very experienced noise professional from the EPD and also from the consultancy industry. So I think this year with the study guide, people will find the noise section more, what should I say, achievable and and less difficult to pass. So this is the area I'm going to cover this morning, the syllabus. Some highlights about the fundamental and environmental noise, the noise pollution sources and impact, the noise prediction modeling, environmental noise management, and suggested reading materials and some sample questions. About the syllabus is in fact cover only 6 areas. The first is the fundamental of environmental noise, which I think most of you may have learned in physics about the sound, and also the noise pollution sources and impact. This one we have included a lot of examples and regulatory requirement in Hong Kong, and the noise prediction modeling, which is a very practical aspect, because when I first started working as an environmental consultant, the first thing I learned is noise modeling. And environmental noise management, the noise monitoring and measurement, which is also a very practical requirement, because we need to monitor the actual noise emissions and also do some verification measurement after we install the mitigation measures and some relevant guidelines. Okay, this is the syllabus. In fact, we extract this from the table of contents of the study guide. So about the fundamental of environmental noise, we cover sound and noise, perception of sound and response of the human ears to noise, and some characteristics of sound and the decibel scale, and some principles of sound propagation, and the concept and approach of soundscape, and some mathematics. We would not require you to do very complicated calculation, but some simple logarithmic addition of the sound pressure level is expected. And the second part, the noise pollution sources and impact, will cover the typical environmental noise sources in Hong Kong, and the definition of noise receivers, and the noise standards, which in fact is very important because you need to understand the legislation and also how we interpret and implement those requirements, and the auditory and non-auditory effects of noise and exposure-response relationships, which is related to annoyance and sleep disturbance caused by excessive noise level. And noise prediction modeling, the practical aspects, including the reasons for modeling, some basic noise modeling concepts, the noise prediction methodologies, the common computation software used in Hong Kong, but don't worry, we will require you to really set up or run a computer noise model during the exam. And we don't expect you to have experience using every one of this noise model of or methodology, but some basic understanding of this noise modeling approach, I think, is fundamental. And the methodologies and software limitations, and also the large-scale model for city noise mapping. And the fourth part is on environmental noise management, which includes the basic approach for the prevention of noise problem, control, abatement, and also noise mitigation measures. And also again, soundscape, which is some of the basic concept of soundscape, which is contrary to conventional noise abatement approach. And the fifth part is on the noise monitoring and measurement, which includes subjective assessment for noise from domestic premises or public space, and the construction works noise monitoring for EM&A purpose. This, in fact, includes very commonly used technique we adopted during our day-to-day work when we need to do the noise monitoring and measurement. And also based on some of the requirement on the technical memorandum, as well as the Hong Kong planning standard and guidelines, and the road traffic noise measurement and monitoring, railway noise measurement and monitoring, and then aircraft noise monitoring, which is in fact done by the Civil Aviation Department, and the musical event noise measurement and monitoring, referring to the outdoor musical event, and also the verification measurement for specially designed glazing for industrial noise and for acoustic window, balcony, special architectural features for traffic noise, which is now becoming more commonly adopted mitigation measures to alleviate traffic noise problem in Hong Kong, and also the product noise and vehicle noise measurement. And the last part on the relevant guideline, we'll make reference to the Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines, technical memorandum of EIA ordinance, and guidance note for construction and road traffic noise assessment, and some of the professional persons and environmental consultative committee practice notes. These all guidelines are like the Bible, because we need to make reference to them every now and then when we are preparing the noise impact assessment or the environmental impact assessment, or when we need to discuss with the authority. Okay, the first part. I'm not going to go through the whole content, but I'm going to highlight some of the scope and the framework, so that for you to easier understand what we are trying to include in this study guide. And first one on the fundamental of environmental noise. We cover the sound and noise, perception of sound, response of the human ears to noise. And when we are compiling this, we found that, in fact, most of this information is included in EPD's website, in the application package. Okay, so I'm going to show you. So if you want to study before you have the study guide, you can in fact go to this website. Like, they have a detailed account about sound and noise, and the propagation of sound and the characteristic of sound at the decibel scale. So while maybe not all of you will be noise expert or acoustic consultant, some of the common sound or the sound pressure level and how the sound pressure level is defined, I think it's something easily for you to grasp. Besides that, and also on the sound propagation and some noise descriptors of environmental noise commonly used in the noise impact assessment. So, what's the definition of L10, L50, L90? You can find some of the explanation here. In fact, it's also in some textbook, but it's also in this environmental pack, education pack provided by EPD. Like we are using which descriptor for traffic noise, that is L10, 1 hour averaging time, and the traffic noise criteria is L10 1 hour of 70 dBA, which is adopted in Hong Kong, and we use it in every traffic noise impact assessment. And what is the definition of the equivalent continuous sound pressure level? This we consider as basic for the noise chapter. And then, some of the mathematics people were concerned. So, do I need to? Oh, it's not here. Sorry. As I mentioned before, we would expect you to understand what is frequency, what is the age weighting, and like the addition of sound level using a logarithm addition. Okay, this is the age weighting, which is commonly used when we want to assess this noise level for human perception. Okay. And the second part, the noise pollution sources and impacts. This part is in fact developed based on the Hong Kong situation. So we list out a lot of typical environmental noise sources and noise sensitive receiver you see in Hong Kong, and also the noise standard we're adopting. Again, is here, and one of the environmental education package, but you also see some of the extracts and study guide, like typical environmental noise in Hong Kong and the level, like construction, the piling, railway, traffic, and about the auditory effects and non-auditory effects. In fact, we have also made reference to a good practice guide on noise exposure and potential health effects, which is prepared by the European Environment Agency, and they have a very detailed guidance and description about how the noise may affect the health, and what's the approach to mitigate. Okay. About the noise standard in Hong Kong. This is also something we would expect you to understand, like the definition of the noise sensitive receiver and how the different type of areas defined, and what do we mean by the inferencing factors, and how to define the different noise criteria, like for construction noise and for the construction and or decommissioning of designated project under the EI ordinance, and the noise from places other than domestic premises, public places or construction sites, which is in the technical memorandum, for the assessment of noise from places other than the domestic premises, public places or construction sites. So this is in fact some the first steps that we need to do when we are preparing the noise impact assessment, you need to find out the right noise criteria you are actually working against. And also the noise criteria for planning for different type of noise source, road traffic noise, rail noise, fixed noise source, and helicopter noise, and air traffic noise, which now don't have the HKIQEP airport and just the new Czech airport. So you could see, in fact, all this information is readily available. Maybe we come across it like every day when we are working on the noise impact assessment. But as I said, this year with the study guide, I think you can find easier way to get hold of this information and understand the framework. Okay. Okay, I think I covered this already. And the noise prediction modeling, the reason for the modeling, some of the basic modeling concepts, including an analytical model, engineering model, which include the noise emission model and the noise propagation model, numerical model, and finite element model, boundary element model, and ray tracing model. I think what we're trying to tell you in the study guide about all this noise prediction modeling is that there are different type of models, and we use a different model for different kind of noise impact assessment, though you may not need to know the details about some of the numerical model or finite element model, but you know the concept about it and how they are used for different situations. Like for noise prediction methodologies, commonly adopted in Hong Kong, including the calculation of road traffic noise when we are assessing the road traffic noise impact, and the calculation of railway noise when we are doing the railway noise impact assessment, and ISO 9613, acoustics, attenuation of sound during propagation outdoors. This one, in fact, we are just calculating the sound propagation when we know the sound source level, and also the International Civil Aviation Organization document, which is for the aircraft noise assessment, and some of the computation software, and the large-scale model for city noise mapping, which is quite commonly used, especially in Europe. In fact, in Hong Kong, we also have a noise map. Did any of you check out the noise map for Hong Kong? It's also in the EPD website. And some of the methodology and software limitation. Okay. And environmental noise management, which include the prevention of noise problem, control, abatement, some description of the commonly used noise mitigation measures, and soundscape. Okay. In fact, in Hong Kong, we're using the four-pronged approach to tackle the noise problem, including planning, abatement, control, and partnership. So what are they? So planning is to ensure that existing and the planned noise-sensitive receiver, including residential development and schools, are protected from the excessive traffic noise. So, and also the aircraft noise, which we can alleviate the noise problem through good planning. So there's some example here, including the building, the master layout design, and setback of the building from the roads, and using a podium deck. Okay. So after that is the abatement. Abatement also include abatement of traffic noise, like using the quiet road surface program, and the school insulation program is also another abatement measures commonly used in Hong Kong, and retrofitting noise barrier along the highway. Control, in fact, include all the cover all the noise control legislation in effect, including the noise legislation for general construction work, so percussive piling, which required the contractor to apply for construction noise permit before they can operate the passive powering machine, and also the industry and commercial activities, and neighborhood activities, which is controlled under the noise control ordinance, and the noisy products, and individual motor vehicles, and the traffic management, intruder alarm system, as well as the aircraft noise, which is controlled under the civil aviation ordinance. And what is partnership? This involves getting different stakeholders on board, so including those from the construction industry, from the restaurant, from the vehicle repair workshops, property management sector, so that they could, they're encouraged to comply with the developing the partnership program for different trades and to minimize the noise problem in Hong Kong. Okay, so some examples of the noise mitigations. In fact, this again is very principles and basic concept when we need to design mitigation measures to tackle a noise problem. So usually it involves control at noise sources, like using quieter equipment or having the no noise surfacing on the road, and the noise reduction at the transmission path. So discount all the noise barrier or enclosure you always see along the road. This is the second approach. And then the protection of the receiver end, which is now becoming more common because we're using more acoustic balcony or acoustic window at the receiver as mitigation measures for traffic noise. But also the design of the receiver, like the orientation of the receiver away from the noise source, is also another kind of protection at the receiver end. Okay. Some of the commonly used mitigation measures in Hong Kong, the land use planning, the alternative siting, and also screening by noise-tolerant building, like the car park building, or even a residential building being screened by a hotel, which is centrally aircon is also another kind of screening. And also building disposition, the decking over, which I think you see in Lambton, right? And also, this is a podium, using a podium as the screening features. Noise barrier or enclosure to reduce noise from highway, and the noise enclosure. So it also includes some examples here. The architectural features like balcony, architectural fins, as well as building orientation or no noise surfacing, acoustic insulation of receiver. There are also other examples of noise mitigation measures in terms of case study. So I think you can go through this when you are studying for the exam. Okay. And also we include soundscape in the environmental noise management. As I mentioned before, besides the conventional approach, soundscape is in fact another approach. We treat sound as a resource instead of just noise. So it serves to enhance the good sound quality. And also by using the soundscape planning, that's a way to improve the urban ambient acoustic environment. So there's a research report that we have made reference to. It's done by University of Salford in UK. So the research is into the practical and policy application of soundscape concepts and technique in urban areas. Okay, and noise monitoring and measurement. So, in fact, we need to adopt different noise monitoring techniques for different kind of noise source that we want to investigate it. And also, sometimes we cannot just report the measured noise level. We may need to include some calculation or correction so that representative noise level is reported at the end. So the subject, the area we cover include the subjective assessment of noise from domestic premises or public place, the construction works noise monitoring for environmental monitoring and audit purpose, and the industry and commercial noise management, and the musical event noise measurement and monitoring, as well as the railway noise measurement and monitoring. In fact, this very detailed guidelines, again, in the EPD website. And because for some of the noise assessment, like those required for industrial or fixed plant noise, there's the assessment methodology set out in the technical memorandum for the assessment of noise from places other than domestic premises, public places of construction site that we have to make reference to when we are doing the measurement and monitoring. And also, you could make reference to some of the EIA report or the environmental monitoring and audit report in the website for the environmental impact assessment ordinance, because there's some detailed methodology and techniques included there. And for road traffic noise measurement and monitoring, this is one of the examples in the EIA report, which detail the noise parameter used. For road traffic noise, we usually have to do the noise measurement during the peak traffic hour to assess the worst case traffic noise impact, and also the monitoring requirement including the equipment used, the common sound level meter requirement specification, and also some of the typical conditions like noise measurement shall not be made in fog, rain, and wind with steady speed exceeding 5 meters per second, or wind with gust. Sometimes when I come across some construction sites, I've seen it several times before, is I saw a sound level meter, and because it's raining, people wrap it in a plastic bag. And that is wrong, okay? So I think it would be useful for you to at least take a look at this requirement. Though you may not be the one doing the noise measurements in the future, but you know what is the proper way to do it. And the selection of the monitoring location, etc. And the measurement of special design glazing for industrial noise, which we have to make reference to this technical memorandum for the assessment of noise from places other than domestic premises, public places, or construction sites. So you can see it's very detailed in the TM about the determination of the acceptable noise level, and also, let me go to the measurement parts. It also mentioned that when the noise under investigation is being received within the building, because usually when we talk about the noise assessment point, it's 1 meter from the building facade. But in the case when the noise is received within the building from a noise source located on or within the same or an adjoining building, what does it mean? Maybe you have a plant room above your room, but you're hearing the structure-borne sound, the noise come through the structure. So this is the case. So the noise is transmitted primarily through the structural elements of the building, and then the acceptable noise level should be 10 dBA, less than the relevant acceptable noise level here. So this is something a lot of people, maybe they usually miss this small wording. Okay, so this also includes measurement of the noise under investigation, how we determine the measured noise level, and do the correction, including important correction for tonality, which may be required when you're measuring sound from industrial premises, And also correction for impulsiveness when the sound source is impulsive, and correction for intermittency, like when the sound source just turn on for a short period and then is off, so this is the intermittency correction, etc. So this part is usually also missed. A lot of people measure the noise level and then they report that in fact they need to do some correction. In fact, this link goes to some of the legislation about aircraft noise, and which is controlled by under the Civil Aviation Ordinance, and also the aircraft noise monitoring is done by the authority as well. And these are some of the suggested reading materials, including some of the standards I mentioned before. And also the website here. So since you don't have the study guide yet, if you want to take a photo of this and study first, please feel free to do so.